Hey guys, so I'm sitting out here in my new old RV. I traded my travel trailer, and as you know, if you've been following my channel long enough, I constantly fiddle with all sorts of things, and so today is no different. After going camping a couple of times, I think it became apparent that I need to install a fantastic fan. Now, this is a 23-foot Class C motorhome. Just like your typical motorhome, as you see right behind me over there, there's a couple of your standard 14.5-inch openings for your typical hang crank thing that goes up. On top of it, the previous owner installed, I think it's called Max Fan cover, and so one of the things I've done when I bought the RV is I've very thoroughly went through every single square inch, and I've insulated the crap out of everything. I've caulked everything, including the roof. So I'm at the point where having installed a fantastic fan in the past the proper way, I thought that there has to be an easier way than removing the vent contraption entirely, going with mineral oils, going through the process of, unscrewing everything, tampering with the roof all over again, recaulking all over again. There just has to be a, simple reason. So, those of you that think, you know what I'm about to do, yes, you're right. I'm about to install a fantastic fan from the inside rather than from the top. That way you never have to climb the roof. Now, in the interest of transparency, a couple of things we need to keep in mind. This is not a standard installation. This more than likely will void the warranty of your unit. But by the way, if you have this installed the proper way and something breaks, just think how much hoops you would have to jump through in order to, I don't know, get it replaced. You're going to have to remove it. You're going to have to restrip, everything. Then you're going to have to cover your roof. So, honestly, the so-called warranty is really not a warranty. So I started looking into what can I possibly do to make it as easy of a process as possible. Now, on my travel trailer, which was a 17-foot Clipper by Coachman, it didn't have any of the openings at all, so I didn't have the luxury of installing it properly. So what I had to do, I actually had to find the beams, on 14-inch spacing essentially, or 14.5-inch spacing, cut a hole in my roof and install it that way. And I'm probably, my trailer, now that I've traded it, is like the only Coachman Clipper in the universe that has a fantastic fan installed. So this time I'm gonna show you how to do it properly. Okay. Another thing to keep in mind is those of you that have a Max Fan cover like I do. Okay, there's plenty of videos out there from the vendor of fantastic fan that show, like, for example, how they use different covers and how much air moves, and there's some sort of flap that goes up and down, and how it, anything but the official fantastic fan cover reduces the air volume, etc. So I do want to bring that to your attention. I am aware of that video. I am aware of those claims. Okay, but at the same token, in owning my fantastic fans, I have never, ever ran them at full steam. I've always put them on the first dial, and it did beautiful job. Now, if you don't want to mess with fantastic fans, you have two other options. There's the Vortex conversion kit, and then there's the Vortex 2 conversion kit. And the difference is that one is 70 CFM, and the other one is like 188. By contrast, if you get the cheapest model of fantastic fan, it's 488, I believe, or something of the sort. That's the lowest setting, and then it goes up to almost 1 atmosphere for the highest setting. So, what does that mean? If you run it with the Max Air cover on the roof, it doesn't you know, impact this whole contraption anyways. And since I'm gonna be tampering with, you know, warranty anyways, you know, this is a thought experiment, and obviously me posting this video out there is proof enough that it actually works and all that stuff. So let's consider the basics. Your typical Fantastic fan will come exactly like so, and the second piece of it is this up here, and then in some cases you'd probably have to cut based on how wide your unit is, right? So there's nothing weird about it, right? Now, by contrast, if we look at a standard opening, as you see here, this is your typical crank. You lift this up and then go through the motions and it opens up. Now, if this was daylight outside, you'd see that I have a cover, you know, the typical scoop. So the standard opening is 14.5 inches wide, and so typically they'll have screws, and what you're gonna need to do is you're gonna need to remove the screws. Okay, you're gonna need to remove a screw out of this notch up here, and in order for you to remove the actual net, there's gonna be a screw there and another screw over there. Okay, and once you do that, this is what you get. Right, this is the same exact opening except on the front. Now this up here is the cover that I was talking about. Okay, so you have a hand crank that opens this whole contraption, and there's the crank, right? Come on. And let me see if I could shine. There you go. That's the max cover. There. See that? It opens up to the max. And that's pretty much the standard opening. So my goal was to somehow fit Fantastic fan into that opening without modifying anything. And so I started measuring this and that and the other thing, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, there has to be a solution to this. And believe it or not, there is. This box in here is the same as this box in here, which is the standard that came with the unit. And the actual Fantastic fan is exactly the same size, believe it or not. Now the cover is a little bit bigger, so if you wanted to, and by the way, I'm going to show you how to remove this in a minute. If you wanted to take this cover and sort of fit it in there, as you see, it doesn't fit. What a bummer, right? Now there's a trick to that. What you're going to need to do, you're going to need to take your screwdriver and undo 1, 2, 3, and 4 bolts. And then once you do that, you're going to flip, and I'm going to do this with one hand. There's this little crank thing over there. Okay, you're gonna open that like so. Okay, and this piece up here, this piece that lifts your cover, is attached right through here. Okay, so when you crank it enough, you'll be able to open the cover, and you'll be able to, without any unscrewing whatsoever, just carefully remove that. Okay, and if you notice, this being the simplest unit of Fantastic fan, and I'm guessing you could do this with the with, you know, more advanced options, but this is the simpler unit. I actually got this with a 10% off coupon and also a $25 gift certificate that you get, you know, from Camping World for updating your membership. So I got this for $129 less 10%. Less $25. This up here is the cutoff switch. Okay, normally what happens when your cover presses on it, Fantastic fan stops. So the next phase was to take this, and by the way, in case you're wondering, this is 14.5 inches up here. So this is your standard square. Okay, that fits into that hole without the necessity of climbing the roof, removing, going through the whole mineral oils and everything else Okay, this is not a standard installation. Obviously this is not recommended by the manufacturer, so use this guide as a sort of cautionary thing. If situation was different, if I didn't have covers, okay, because the replacement hood scoop thing is like 60 bucks, 45 on Amazon. Plus you're gonna have to climb the roof, remove everything, strip everything, cover the roof, make sure no rain gets in. So there's just way too much work. So we've taken standard cover like so, and we removed majority of the components out of it. Okay. We disassembled, minimally disassembled Fantastic Fan. And by the way, those are your leads up here. Your positive and your negative. And most RVs will have some sort of light not that far from the opening. So what you're going to need to do is at some point you're going to need to open this, unscrew this fixture, actually remove it from the ceiling, and then run the wire on the other side of this and tap into that. Okay, but back to this, and let me see if I could actually do this with one hand. I don't know if I can, but that's the spinning knobby thing that I was talking about that opens Fantastic Fan. So we're gonna lift this up. Watch this. Hopefully without killing myself in process. How about that for a fit? Completely flush everywhere. Well, I'm holding it, but you get the point. And literally, if you could put up with this unsightly thing, looking like that, then you don't really have to deal with anything to do with climbing the roof and doing it the proper way. Now, if you were, if you're looking for some sort of vanity in it, I'm guessing you could engineer this cover. And let me flip this and see if that's even possible. You could, in theory, take this cover and with like a Dremel or something like that, just take this one trim piece out of it and attach it on top of this to essentially remove the unsightly unsightly way that it looks. But honestly, how often do you look at the ceiling? Function over form as far as I'm concerned. So one thing to kind of mention is this little whatchamajig opens that. Okay, and you're gonna need to open and close this, or if you don't mind the wind noise, I guess you could run with it open. But my vision is to in the next step somehow engineer this opening and closing mechanism to somehow go with this, so that effectively gets opened by the wind itself. That way you never even have to think about it. And to do that, unscrew this, unscrew that, and this whole thing falls to the ground, well, within the constraints of this. And once you turn your Fantastic Fan, the air pressure will push this up and the air will escape through the opening. So in case you're wondering what that piece looks like when you take it out, this is it. Have this whatchamajig that goes in the channel, and then so all of this contraption has like a little gear that when you spin the shaft up here, it raises this whole mechanism. And then the actual door doesn't really weigh anything. It does have this metal aluminum thing, which is kind of wobbly, so I'm gonna once, you know, during the weekend, I'm gonna get myself a little step stool and see if I could get this little piece removed, because the actual vent doesn't really weigh anything. So most of the weight is in this, not this, but that metal piece over there. Alright, so we're back here another day. This time, while I still have a little bit of daylight. So just wanted to go over this hatch situation. So I went on Camping World website just to see what this thing looks like when it's brand spanking new. And so this bar that you see my finger at, let me raise this up high. Okay, that bar over there is riveted on that side, so it's not coming off. That side over there has two little tab things, so even if you wiggle that out, it doesn't really do anything per se. But I do have an idea. I figured I could probably utilize this to somehow open the hatch using the same very system that's available right here on the Fantastic Fan. And what I mean by that is, see this lever up here? Okay, this lever is what lifts this cover. Okay, and since we already removed this cover, and by the way, there's a couple of ways I'm gonna try it, and I'm gonna splice whichever method I feel works the best, but I'm gonna show you two anyways. So the goal is, well, method number one is to take this off this hatch, which we're not gonna use, and then attach it there somewhere, right there, okay, and use some sort of extended whatchamajig to effectively be able to crank up Fantastic Fan while simultaneously lifting this. And the reason why I'm doing that is because you can never be too careful, you know, just in case it's raining. I do have a hood on top of this, but you know, you never know. So the other option of doing it is to utilize this and then connect it to the centerpiece of that. And I went to Ace Hardware and picked up some supplies. So what I'm thinking is using something like a rod that you see here on camera, and effectively somehow bridging the space between this with the rod into the top bracket. So I'm gonna try both methods and see which one works for me, and that's the method I'm gonna show in this video later. Now while I still have the daylight, it's time to talk about electricity. As you can see, I don't have any wires here at all, which is quite sad as far as I'm concerned, but that shouldn't prevent you from being able to access electricity. So it doesn't really matter if you have a travel trailer, if you have a Class C, they all fundamentally work the same. If you notice, this light up here and then this light up here are different than all the other lights. And so I'm gonna show you how to remove it, and that would be about the same on all units. So what you're gonna need to do, typically on those, you need to squeeze it, and I'm doing this with one hand, but they all fundamentally work the same way. You squeeze it and undo the tabs, you squeeze that, undo the tabs, and then the actual light fixture will have screws which you need to unscrew and I'm gonna pause and get right back. Alright, so now that we've unscrewed this, you could see how there's wires hanging off the black and the white. And if you look through this hole up here, that's where they go in. So that would be your light source. And normally, the actual Fantastic Fan comes with additional wires, so you're gonna have plenty of length to actually extend this. Now, word of advice, having done this in the past, be sure to essentially electrically wire this thing before you attempt to put this on the top, because you don't want to be messing with that while simultaneously trying to reconnect the wires. It's just not possible. Alright, so I got a bit of fantastic news on Fantastic Fan. Believe it or not, you don't even need to modify anything to make this latch opener work with that contraption over there. Nothing at all. Now, of course, your situation might be different. That's the reason why I showed you those two designs. But what I've done is I figured, well, let me try this anyways. So I've taken Fantastic Fan, and I'm gonna try to one-arm it. Go. And I attached it like so, at least temporarily. And I've noticed that the cover lifted slightly. So I'm like, what can I do with it? And then another aspect, I need the wires on this side, which is exactly how I discovered the very interesting thing. So here's what happens. If you rotate your Fantastic Fan 90 degrees, right, the lever in the back opens and closes the actual hatch. When you crank this lever all the way up, the hatch also opens. When you lower the vent, the hatch closes under its own weight, essentially, because that provides some weight to it, so it just closes naturally. How cool is that? Don't have to do anything. Here I was ready to engineer all of that, and as luck would have it. Now, back to the topic of electricity. I pulled the wires out, as you see. And by the way, this is what you call lazy. That's the reason why I lose sleep over it, because there's just no consistency in the industry at all. And I've noticed that with my old trailer, which was new, which I bought in 2016. Same thing here. You get black and white that are connected to white and yellow. And in other places it would be white and red, white and purple, white and blue, blue and beige. I mean, there's just no... It seems whatever wire they had at the time is the wire that they use. But to make the long story short out of it, what you could do is connect your extended wires to your Fantastic Fan. And then all you have to do is just screw those out, put the wire in, screw those back in, and you are connected to electricity. Now, in my particular case, and this is unique to my specific rig, on my old trailer, I was able to run the wire on the inside through the hole out of here. However, when they made this in 2002, they have made it so well that there's absolutely, short of drilling this, there's just no way at all for you to get cables from there to here. So, see, I don't know how thick this is. My guess is it's 1x3. If anything, I mean, I could in theory drill this and then fit you know what, now that I think about it, I'm probably gonna do that anyways. So what I'm gonna do is, yeah, I'm just gonna do that. I'm gonna drill a hole, and I'm gonna take a fishing wire and essentially pull the cables from here up through the ceiling right there. That way I'll be able to connect it. So the journey continues, but not without little hiccups. What I found is that apparently, unlike in my other travel trailer, the roof isn't exactly hollow. It has aluminum beams that go like this. And so, obviously, considering the distance, I couldn't reach with my regular drill bit. So I went back to Lowe's and went and got myself an 18-inch drill bit. And then I ran into a different issue. 18-inch drill bit doesn't allow your drill to fit into the hole against the back. So then I removed this door with a glass, put it over there. In the future, that's going to be my flat screen TV. But and then I found, well, I still couldn't fit my drill in there. And then I went and looked in my tool shed and found myself a hole saw that's bigger than the diameter that I drilled. And what I ended up doing, I've taken a flathead and I started drilling a little bit at a time and then carving this out just enough to get past this. And then I was able to get my drill bit in there. But then ran into a different issue. I still couldn't get the drill in there. So went back to my tool shed and have gotten myself this 90-degree bit. Now, in case you're wondering where to buy this, Harbor Freight Tools. This costs, I don't know, like $8 or $9. And trust me, this is worth every single penny. That's about the only place where you could buy it. You're not going to find it at Lowe's or Ace Hardware or anything like that. Harbor Freight Tools is your go-to place for this sort of stuff. And so what I was able to do is drill it far enough, probably up until here, more or less. And then, you know, drill a little bit. And by the way, I'm not really drilling wood or anything like that. All it is on the other side of this is styrofoam. And then there's layers of aluminum sheeting, and then there's a couple of aluminum beams. So very slowly, I carve myself a path. And believe it or not, well, I don't have a flashlight with me, but I managed this hole over here. I managed to put the drill bit right at that hole. I couldn't see how I could have done that because I had gone in blind and I just eyeballed it, expecting to come out here or there, but it's actually right where that is. So the next step is to actually feed the wires through. And again, you know, you could do this with a regular string, you could do this with a piece of rope, or you could have proper tools like I have, which is to essentially fish the wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed this through the hole, tape this with electrical tape to the wires, and then feed the wires through the hole to come out that way. So it should go without saying that before screwing anything on, it's a good idea to actually test things out. As you can see, I've attached this back, I fed the wire through, and by the way, this is another tool that you could pick up from Harbor Freight Tools. Harbor Freight is good for anything cheap. This is not meant to be industrial. Obviously it has flaws, but it served me so well over the years, and I got 2 of those. And perfect example, right now it's actually holding up the entire fan. So the goal is to test the fan out to see if it works, and how about that? Success. Success. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna attach. Oh, by the way, in case you're wondering how I am going to wire it, because this is supposed to be actually touching the roof rather than the inside. It has notches for the wires, and so instead of coming out this notch, I actually fed the wire on the inside like so. Fed the wire up here, taped it with white duct tape, that way it doesn't stand out too much. And then I've taken one of those holes and enlarged it with a larger drill bit, fed the wires through it, and we'll be connecting the wires like so. And then the next phase is to actually use that same white duct tape and just tape it on the inside of that, so that when I screw this in, it doesn't wobble all over the place. So I guess the biggest elephant in the room is, does this thing actually work? So as you see, I've screwed everything back in. Doesn't look too bad. This little bump up here is because there's wires that are fed. But other than that, what I've done is I've taken the wires and actually bumped them, because they wouldn't fit between this and that because of the spacing. So they are about there-ish. And as you can see, they're isolated from the weather elements. So should be perfectly fine. So to kind of demonstrate and not to embarrass myself, I've tried this before. So here's the thing, that whole door, as you can see, it shuts under its own weight, so it shuts there pretty flush. Considering that I have a max air cover on top of it, you know, even if I leave it open, you know, nothing gets in. So, but getting back to the topic of hand, the goal was to make this thing, you know, mounted from the inside, which I've done. And then to somehow engineer this doohickey, and I'm gonna do this in real time. If you could see it through there, you could see how the bar is raised. See that over there on the camera? And so what that does, boom, it lifts up that whole door, and now you could see through there the air outside. So it's a win-win situation. Alright, the next step is, does this thing actually work if we crank it up? Ooh, we got power. How about that? This is at the lowest setting, and I don't have anything other than this bag to kind of demonstrate here. See this? Alright, and if you wanted to crank this up, now this being said, you know, I'm sure there's going to be some people concerned about running this at the second or third option, which honestly, I guess you could. But you could hear how noisy it is, and it's quite annoying. So, if you leave it at 1, and by the way, I have one of the best microphones on the market, I called Rode, so it's picking up sound quite nice. So, if you sit here on this table, it's doing its job. Not too noisy either. And so what you could do is you could leave this up like so on number 1, and it's creating just enough circulation here in the coach to move the air. So this is still about 3 or 4 times stronger than the vortex conversion. which is really meant for bathrooms. And another trick, obviously, to ventilate this whole thing, what you're gonna need to do is you're gonna need to crack open any of the side windows or anything like that, or maybe even lift up this one to essentially circulate the the air from the cabin. If it gets hot, oh man, I'm standing out here and I could actually feel the breeze. How about that? The next step is to have this attached to a permanent electricity source. And so in one of my future videos I'll be installing a solar system, so that I could run this and forget about it. Like if you go to Disney or something like that, you could crank this up and it'll be nice and cold on the inside. So there you go, folks. As you can see, this is very much possible. So why do this? If you've been following my channel, you know that I've been in a car accident and got injured. And so I do want to minimize as much as possible having to climb on the roof, because it's just an additional risk I don't need in my life. So, and especially on account that if you look through the window that way, I have chairs attached to the ladder, so the ladder is pretty much unusable. Not that I need to climb it on a regular basis, but whatever. So, but yeah, I wanted to mount this on the inside because this is an older coach. This already has everything installed, and so if I wanted to install this properly, the thing that I would have had to do is climb the roof. Well, for one, time it so that there's no rain or anything like that. Climb the roof, remove everything, associated with the old setup, and let me find a place to sit. Remove everything from the old setup, and clean everything up, scrape everything off, attach this, drill the roof. And by the way, the original stock holes are not going to work anymore because this has a different hole pattern. So I would have had to drill the holes, die core everything, Eterna bond everything on top of it, and then go back inside, remove the inside cover, put the whole thing in, and you could just see how. Oh, and on top of it, you would also have had to thrown out the cover that you already have. That works perfectly fine, and you would have had to drill holes all over again to mount the fantastic fan cover. I don't know. In the video that I've seen from Fantastic Fan Company, they have this video about the flap going up and down and how something about air moving and etc. So, to some extent, you have to understand the basics of how air works. Okay, the ambient atmosphere in the coach. If you wanted to pressurize this, you would have had to pressurize this above, or at least at 1 atmosphere, and you are nowhere near that. Okay, this whole thing is rated to 900 and something 80. Well, I don't have a box here with me, but it's rated less than 1 atmosphere. In order for you to compress the air, okay, to the state of feasibility, like for example when I go scuba diving, the air is compressed inside the tank at, for example, 80 cubic feet scuba tank. So somebody has to pump it under tremendous pressure, like 3000 psi, into the tank. Okay, so with something like this, you are never, ever, ever, ever going to exceed that whole max air contraption over there. At worst, you may get within maybe like 70 percentile or something like that, and that's when you started seeing that cover going up and down in the video. If you want to do this right, obviously you would be doing all the steps that I've described, you know, by climbing the roof, removing the old stuff, etc., etc. But with something like this, your average grandmother could do this from the inside of the coach with very minimal effort. I mean, other than, you know, regular household tools, I don't have anything significant that would warranty a full-scale operation. You know, this whole thing, it took me collectively maybe an hour to install, and that's only because I'm recording this in the video, so I have to stage the shots a little bit. But this is a very quick install, as you can see. And, you know, if this thing ever breaks, I could always just unscrew this, because it's already pre-wired, and just screw another one in its place, because everything is there, everything is done. So, I'm going to see how my coach is doing with just one. In my experience, you know, I haven't had one on my travel trailer before. It was more than plenty. But if I ever have the need for another one, what I'll do is I'll go back here and replace that one. Same exact way. Unscrew that. Follow same exact protocol. You know, with that. But honestly, one should be more than enough. All you need to create in your coach is just enough breeze. So you just crack open a window and let this thing run on one. And the air capacity at the max air is more than capable of handling this whole thing. Now, as for making this pretty or something along those lines, I don't know, to my naked eye, and this is just my personal opinion over it, it doesn't look bad. It looks very presentable, because when you juxtapose it against something like this behind me, I mean, you'll see this versus that. Or even back here at the back of the coach. You know, function over form, as they say, but you know, this doesn't look so bad. If anything, what I might try, and like I said before in the video, I could take the cover that they've provided and using my cutoff wheel on the Dremel or maybe even use a Sawzall to essentially remove that and just keep the lip and maybe attach the lip. But then looking at it, no, it's gonna create a gap, so maybe I'm just gonna leave it as is. So I know for a fact that it works. I know for a fact that I've succeeded with the project, so I'm quite happy. So if you guys were interested in you know, how to install Fantastic Fan from the inside without the whole roof situation, now you know how. Now if you don't have any holes at all, none whatsoever, I could tell you from personal experience of having installed this on my Coachman Clipper 17BH, which doesn't come with anything like that. It is possible to install Fantastic Fan. The only thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to climb the roof with a hole saw and a Sawzall. This is messy, by the way, so you know, obviously grab a vacuum cleaner, and in my case I use plastic sheeting on the inside. So what you're going to need to do is the spacing between the cross beams is about 14.5 inches, and you're going to need to figure out where your beams are and essentially poke a hole between them and cut out from beam to beam 14-inch square or 14.5-inch square, so that you could slide the top portion of Fantastic Fan in there. And then from the inside, same thing, you know, you'd have your hole up here, and you take this piece and slide it into the hole, or cut it appropriately, or something along those lines, and connect it that way. When I did it, it took me probably, I would say maybe 6 hours, and that's only because I was absolutely terrified of doing it. The actual physical work of doing it, like have I known how to do it, maybe 2 hours at most, and that's, you know, including cleanup and everything like that. So that being said, project complete. Time to move on to the other project. My next thing that I'm gonna do is solar setup. Right now I'm shooting for 400 watts Renogy solar, either flexible or rigid. I'm still researching. I'm following several channels from Tampa Bay to figure out how theirs are doing. What they've done is for the flex solar, they've used the Turnabond essentially to put them, flush against the roof. But there's the issue of the overheating. So I'm gonna see how theirs handles long term. If I was to, but that's a whole different video. So I'm gonna leave you wondering with that. So, but this is done. Everything else is good, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.